Hello, everybody, and welcome to Keep It Spiritually Simple. I'm your host, Sandra McAllis. And before we introduce a reoccurring and very beautiful guest, I'd like to ask each and every one of you to share your support by hitting the like, subscribe, share, and comment buttons. And it helps the algorithm of this video circulate through all of the ins and outs of social media. So today I have the pleasure of welcoming back Dr. Nancy, and we're going to talk a little bit more about plant medicine. If you want to get yourself familiar, go back to our first video called Introduction to Plant Medicine with Dr. Nancy. And then there's also an additional video, which is part one. This is going to be part two. And then we're going to have a series on this particular topic because there's really a lot to share. And I really consider her highly wise, experienced, and expertitious. I make up my own words as I go. But anyway, the queen of plant medicine, Dr. Nancy, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing great, and it's a pleasure to be here with you, Sandy.
It's always a pleasure. We have so much fun. So let's get into it. The last time we talked at the end of part one, we kind of brought up the legalities of these plant medicines and psychotropics and, you know, all these different things and why and when and how is it all locked up and has all this superstition of being, horrible for you or long lasting or it's going to alter everything in your world. What is that really all about, Dr. Nancy? Could you share with our listeners what you know about that?
Well, actually, I go into it in three of my chapters. So I have some notes here. We're going to go through them because I don't want to miss any information that I have. Um,
But
and
everybody, I want you to know we're reading out of Dr. Nancy's book, The Master Plant Teacher. So this is kind of what she's reviewing. These are available on Amazon. So when she refers to, let me look at a chapter, this is what she's referring to. All right, you go ahead.
Yep, I also wanted to let people know it's on Amazon Audible and Amazon and the different formats, hardcover, softcover, and ebook. And it's also available on Apple Books and now on Barnes and Noble online. So you have
Yay.
plenty of opportunities to grab it in different formats. But so the first place that I go into the legalities is in chapter 5. So I'm just going to read a couple of things here and then we can dive into it and discuss it further. The current federal laws dictate that people don't have any choice in being able to experience plant medicines for end of life crisis and emotional pain because there's not enough research to be able to prove the effectiveness of these treatments. Therefore, the United States federal laws are in place stating that they are to protect people from plant medicines, even though civilizations have been using them for thousands of years to provide healing and comfort. The federal laws are preventing people and not allowing them to choose the way they want to die and help ease the emotional crisis. It is unfortunate that we have a legal system that keeps the family from helping their loved one, even if the departing person asks for plant medicine to be used to help them deal with their emotional pain of leaving their loved ones behind. We would be in a completely different place now if it wasn't for the invalid and unreasonable legislation against the psychedelic research. The Harvard experiment that was absorbed into the LSD researchers, Timothy Leary and Richard Albert, later named Ram Dass by his Indian guru, and who guided several generations on the spirituality of psychedelics. Throughout the psychedelic research at Harvard during this time, only one person claimed to have a negative experience and thus was responsible for ending the Harvard LSD research. Word got out on the euphoric experience a person has while under LSD, and the teenage and college age generation started to experience the effects of LSD sold on the streets and in the public culture. The United States Federal Drug and Food Administration put an end to all LSD research. This caused the drug to go underground and be purchased illegally on the street with the risk the drug may not be pure. During the 60s, the federal government and politicians placed an end to all psychedelics research and stopped everything cold, and years had gone by without any research. Due to all the illegal usage of LSD and other psychedelics on the street, the younger population ended up exploring the human psyche and higher levels of consciousness. The psychoactive substances up ended up teaching the psychedelic generation that were interested in self-inquiry more about the ego, personality, shadow, psyche, and emotions than did the solid psychologists and psychiatrists at that time, who learned through only books. Due to the negative press sensationalism, legislation tried to stop the psychedelic movement. Robert Kennedy's wife was under a doctor's treatment utilizing LSD and was having good results. Robert Kennedy tried to get the government officials to not be so harsh, and he wanted to keep the research going in hopes that it would help other Americans just like his wife, who had experienced positive results. For many doctors were prescribing psychedelic medicine at that time. More than anything were the journalists who were on a witch hunt against any psychedelic and played it as a worst case scenario to scare the politicians into feeling that this would be a horrific curse on the American public, and there would be a mass pandemonium of people constantly obsessed, demented, deranged, and insane as a result of being on the drugs. In the United States, the Religious Freedom Restoration Act of 1993 allows entheogens to be used for religious ceremonies. The current church members of the Native American Church have the legal right to use peyote in their religious ceremonies. Currently, there are 2 Christian Catholic churches that use the entheogen ayahuasca in their Eucharist communion religious ceremonies. The members of the Christian Catholic Church Santo Daime, it's spelled SANTO space DAIME, and the members of the Christian Catholic Church Unano do Vegetal, it's also known as UDV, and these two Christian churches are recognized by the United States government as having the legal right to use ayahuasca in their Eucharist religious ceremonies. The Christian churches using ayahuasca are increasing in members and new church locations. This shows that entheogens most likely were used in the early Christian church, since the 2 Christian churches using entheogens today are the Catholic churches. There is a discussion to modify the United States Controlled Substances Act to allow for the adult population the responsible and controlled use of entheogens to legally approved centers under proper care and guidance, where highly trained staff can administer entheogens in a safe and protected setting. We are on the way towards full legalization of medical, mental, and health and expanded religious usage. There is more open-minded culture now, and the laws are being looked at again because of the positive results from years of clinical research of entheogens. The therapeutic use extends into medical healings, mental health, spiritual exploration, and self-discovery. The hysteria of the 1960s psychedelic crackdown on drug laws that were created is being reevaluated, and a new generation sees these as an overreaction and instead as a form of control the government has over the people, of not allowing the freedom to use entheogenic botanical medicine. Countries outside the United States have reduced their laws on entheogens. Brazil and Peru have legalized ayahuasca. The Netherlands have entheogenic retreat centers. Yet even though they are classified as illegal, they have a more liberal view towards drugs compared to most countries. In Portugal, all drugs are legal as of 2001. As a result, Portugal has experienced many benefits: less crime, lower addiction rates, reduced social problems, massive savings in police enforcement, courts, and jails related to drug convictions, and a staggering amount of funding for treatment centers. Legalizing drugs in Portugal proved that it was in the best interest for everybody as a win for both the government and the citizens. So I put a lot out there for us to discuss.
Goodness gracious. So for those people who don't know what an entheogen is, meaning is generating the divine within. However, it's a word that's been used now in replace of psychoactive or
Psychedelics.
psychedelics are now
Yeah, they
called
think,
entheogens.
yeah, the psychedelics, they always think of the 60s and
Yes.
recreational use. And these are psychotropic plants that have the DMT in it. And it's entheogen denotes medicine. It's botanical, it's plant-based. It grows all around. We have all these different psychotropic plants that grow all around the world. And so they updated the name to denote entheogen, just because to denote that it was botanical and it was for the use of medicine, whether it's mental health, emotional health, psychological healings, physical healings, that type of thing, spiritual purposes as well.
Mhm. Yeah, anything in the name of religion is allowed some way or another, isn't it? It's in the name of religion, so therefore you can. You know what I mean? There's always a back door for usage. Kills me. I need a religious exemption or a religious code or something like I am me, Sandy is a church, and therefore I can. So
Yeah.
let's talk about this because it's my understanding the government can't control plants. So is am I wrong on that?
Well, they're controlling the use of them. Like you can't
Mm-hmm.
grow ayahuasca. You can't grow magic mushrooms, the ones that are the psychedelic mushrooms. I mean, we have mushrooms in our food, but they don't, those aren't the ones that have DMT in it. And
Mm-hmm.
again, I want to stress this again, DMT is not foreign to the body. Our brain produces DMT before you go to bed every night. So when you're laying on your pillow and you're staring at the ceiling waiting to go to sleep, what you're waiting for is for your brain to produce enough DMT so that you can cross over the veil and go into these other dimensions. We're always traveling. I mean, it's only the body that needs to rest. The soul doesn't need to rest. So the body's resting, the soul's like, okay. So then it basically that turns off the ego, which is noted as the default mode network in the brain. They found this in through research. And by the way, we have 23, the last time I checked, 23 medical school research university teaching hospitals that are doing research on these botanical, these psychotropic plants of different types. The most common one they use is psilocybin because it can be ground up into a powder and put into a capsule, so it's pretty convenient that way. But they also are exploring other psychotropic plants in research, and what they're finding is so many different benefits and more than they realize. And I think we're going to continue over the years to continue to see more and more benefits for these plants that we have. And so yes, it's amazing how in so many different ways people have been cured of cancer, they've been cured of a variety of different things. It's actually non-toxic, and it's non-addictive, meaning that people who have come to the medicine and gone for sacred ceremonies with a psychotropic plant have found that they were cured of addictions like heroin. I know that I've met someone who was cured of heroin with ayahuasca, but also iboga as well will also cure the addiction to heroin. And there's no sense of urges afterward. I mean, it's done, it's gone. So there's no side effects, there's nothing. So that's why I wanted to put this in my book, that what they found was for it being put into Schedule 1 level means it's toxic, it's the most toxic, it's the most dangerous, and they're claiming that it's addictive or has addictive properties, but actually it's anti-addictive because it gets you off of a lot of drugs that people are on that are addicted to. So I think that's why I wanted to go into a little bit the history of the hysteria and witch hunt that was done back in the 60s, regarding, now at that time it was LSD, it was not even psychotropic plants. So and I think it just kind of carried over and they were just lumped into it, these other psychotropic plants, these master plant teachers. So, but there's more on the planet that we haven't even discovered yet that have DMT. These, and I'm trying to remember what culture it is. I don't know if it's the Siberian shamans or if it's up in Asia. Maybe I don't think it's Mongolia, but I'm trying to remember the culture that I talk about it in my book. And it says, we know of, and I'm trying to remember the number, but I know it was a large number. We know of it. I think it was like 750 or 1,000, and we're keeping it a secret because we don't want them exploited. So that in my research, I found, oh, there's a lot more that have yet to be identified that's actually in hiding. But they're just finding so many good results with this. And one of them is what I bring up is end of life crises. So if somebody has been diagnosed with less than a year to live, and they're having a lot of anxiety related to letting go of their life here on the planet, um, there are certain plants that will let go of the clutching to life. And then there are certain plants that, for those that are suicidal, that it allows them to want to stay on the planet and finish their life journey here in the Earth School. So it just depends on what's going on. But I know that the Veterans Administration, I'd heard, was very interested because, especially ayahuasca, because of the way it works in the brain and it creates new neural pathways that goes around the ruts in the brain for traumatic, I guess, people who've had traumas, whether it be, they've gone overseas and had deployments and this type of thing, or they've had things that's happened to them in their life that's been very traumatic. And what happens is you just keep going through those memories and it creates ruts in the brain. So ayahuasca creates new neural pathways around that, and they don't fall into that rut as much to constantly have this reoccurring memories that they have to deal with. And so they're finding that it's just amazing how it does that. And again, what we had talked about on a prior show is that athletes are using these, scientists, people in Silicon Valley with technologies. It speeds up processes in the brains, it ups people's game. So they're using it for a variety of different purposes, and not just for medical reasons, but also for emotional, psychological, and also for physical too. So a lot of people, and of course, I have to put in for spiritual self-discovery. And so just a lot of people come to the medicine for a variety of reasons.
Well, would you say that the level one is like a black box warning? Or a black box warning is something that says you can take it, but you have to be warned. So I guess those wouldn't be the same,
No, because
correct?
you
Because you're
can take
not
it at
really
all in
giving
the
it.
United States without the
Yeah.
religious exemption.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you will be arrested. So you
Yeah.
can't just go in and use these Schedule One level drugs at all in this country. And that's why a lot of people will leave the country to go to
Hmm.
either Costa Rica or Mexico or Peru or Brazil or Africa, or just a variety, depending on the type of plant that you want to work with. um, there are centers outside the United States. So it's because it's limited a lot of people to be able to do this. They have to either go to a church, and it's kind of funny you brought this up, that there have been and is a lot of churches that are created and work under the Religious Exemption Act that allows them to open up a retreat center to really have the people to have the ability to have exposure to these plant medicines and go to these sacred ceremonies.
Do you think people here, well, I mean, I know in the past, just from my own experiences in the medical field, that when someone has a long-term, dis-ease or PTSD or chronic or acute this or that, they will go out of the country for what's considered non-mainstream treatments.
Hmm.
And so I feel like we're at this point now where some of these treatments have been so life-saving and altering and DNA changing by creating new neural pathways that we have to bring it here to the United States, but yet United States has to have control over it. It has to be like a county, city, state control over it, right?
Yeah, we
Um,
have that in Oregon right now and
mhm,
Colorado that psilocybin's legal. And so they are setting up treatment centers where it's controlled. Doctors are there, psychologists are there, therapists are there, that type of thing. So it's a controlled type. And that's what they do in Brazil. I'm sorry, not Brazil, in Portugal.
mm.
And I lived in Portugal for a year in the year 2024. So I actually was able to kind of see how they went about and did this. You had to go to a medical doctor and you had to get a prescription. The medical doctor understood your situation. If you were addicted, let's say, to a particular drug, or you had PTSD or for whatever reason, then the doctor would write a prescription. You go to the center and they help you in that whole process, whether it is getting off that addictive agent, addictive drug, or for emotional issues or psychological issues, that type of thing, or medical issues. And so it was controlled with a doctor's prescription. You had to have it through a doctor's prescription. So it had to be prescribed. And then the dosages was prescribed. They would check in back with the doctor to see how you're doing. And so they had these treatment centers that you could go to. And I think that's, well, it's what they're doing now in Oregon and Colorado. And from what I gather, last time I heard California was looking into this as well. But I think the wave is that we're going to have that here, that people will have access to it, but it will be controlled. And it needs to be controlled. I'm not going to sit here and say everybody should try this. This is not for everybody. I mean, not everybody is able to handle this type of medicine for a variety of reasons, which we talked about in your prior episode about if you have certain diseases, if you are on certain medications, that type of thing. So, and we won't go into it further. They can watch a prior show on that. But so it's important that it is controlled. And but I think it's just allowing access to people to have access to it. And right now, people are frustrated because they don't have access to it. We don't have the system in place that allows the states are not looking at this in a way that, and I think they're starting to, which I think is great. But and I'm hopeful that it comes quickly because a lot of people are having life-changing experiences from these psychotropic plants.
Well, look how long and how far cannabis has come along, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
And now you can have a certain amount on you. And people are using it for the TLC, what is it? TS, what is it?
See?
TS, what is it?
THC.
THC. And then others use it for different things that don't have the THC in it. So, I mean, look at all the studies that have been on that, and now it's been legalized. So, it's interesting, that we're talking about the legalities of all of this. And I really didn't know that much about it until you and I started doing our series and talking off camera and on camera. And next thing I know, everything is popping up about it on my phone. And it's like it's everywhere. And then I recently saw like some kind of conference workshop where they had it might have been uh Make America Great Again or something, movement. They had different speakers set up and different banners above them, and one of them was psychedelics.
Ah.
So it is starting to hit mainstream in a way. People still are going to shy away from it until they understand it, which is why I'm hoping that these series help them,
Mhm.
because you have so much to say about it with so much knowledge. Um, so what else do we want to say about that part of it?
Um, I think unless you want to go further, I can go into the next paragraphs of information.
It's
Um,
completely up to you. If you feel like we need to
yeah.
talk a little bit more about the, why this got covered up, because I think it's a big story on how it got covered up, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, um, if you could reach your spiritual realms very quickly and heal thyself, then others lose control of you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's just my thought.
Yeah.
And so now we have to, the powers that be that may not be in our best interest, that don't want to lose control, are like, oops, can't give them the fast track. We got to give them slow, painful rolls into their life and hide that part from them, right? Because
Yeah.
we need the programs that are set into place now, our medical field, our pharmaceutical fields, etc. We need to feed those. And of course, that's come in the last 100 years, which is why naturopathic medications and plant medicine and protocols have been sort of snuffed away, but are starting to come back now.
Yeah, you brought up a really good point. And Timothy Leary and Richard Elliott, which is known as Ram Dass, and Timothy Leary took the legal aspect of it, trying to get these substances legalized. So he took the political route, and Ram Dass is he took the spiritual route, and I've watched so many videos on him and what he had to say about it, Ram Dass, and he was really he ended up becoming God realized, and you can tell because of his writings, because of how he just what he talked about and how he talked about it and now this sort of thing. He had tried, he admitted he had tried every psychotropic plant possible, and he would go out into the Amazon and all this stuff. Well, he was having all these mystical experiences, but it had no I mean, he knew it was impactful, but he really couldn't unpack it because he really didn't know what the meaning was behind all these mystical, inner mystical experiences that he was having under these psychotropic plants in these sacred ceremonies. And so he ended up going to India, and I believe he was there for 10 years or 12 years. It was quite a number of years. And he was looking for a guru that could really help him in his journey of trying to understand what are all these experiences, inner experiences that he was having. And it changed his life. And then he later by his guru said, okay, it's you got to go back to your people. You got to go back to the United States and help them. And so when he came back, he ended up writing a book, Be Here Now. And then the second book, I think it was, if I remember correctly, it's Still Here. And so he really changed. He really, it was like a revolution that he, in a good sense, because he was able to allow to help people who were taking these psychedelics and having these mystical experiences, because a lot of people were doing it for self-discovery. It wasn't just to get high or anything like that. It was, these plants are very sacred, and they have been used for centuries and centuries for self-exploration, for spiritual reasons. And actually that's what brought me to the medicine, was for self-discovery and for spiritual reasons only. But there's a variety of people who come to the medicine and they want to go deeper, and they realize, gosh, I just wanted out of my pain. I didn't know there was more to these psychotropic plants that was possible for them. And so it's I believe as people use these psychotropic plants, they end up having these mystical experiences, and they're life changing. I mean, they're so life changing. People come back and they totally change their life. They may change their job, they may move to a different place. I mean, it's so revolutionary that that's why it is so effective. Because it wakes people up into their true identity, that you're a soul. And yes, you're in the earth school, but why did you come to the earth school? Who's your soul group? What was your purpose work for coming here? You've got tests and lessons and major exams in the earth school. And so why here? Why now? Where did you come from? All these big questions are answered in a lot of these sacred ceremonies, and it's forever changes people. And they'll say it was the most impactful event that they had in their life. They'll say, oh, I thought the birth of my first child was the most impactful, but wow, this exceeded it. I mean, it's just, so you can see how people completely, it's revolutionary in the sense that it just completely changes their life, their outlook, what their sense of purpose is, what's important to them. And so Ram Dass was really instrumental in taking it to another level to use these sacred plants for spiritual purposes, for spiritual exploration. And so, yeah, that was kind of neat. I wanted to bring those two figures in the that were instrumental in the whole
Well,
psychedelic.
who's the first one? Leary?
Timothy Leary,
And then can you spell Ram Dass
Ramdass,
for
and
those
it's Richard
for those
Elliott.
listeners that want to look it up?
Yeah, Richard Elliott is his legal name, and then it's Ramdas, Ramdass. And you can find a lot of videos on Ramdas in on YouTube about
Mhm.
him. So yeah, he was just
Well,
such an
while
addition.
you were talking, I was thinking about musicians. Musicians, they just go to another level when they're playing certain notes, right? And then putting them together in an artistry that someone who is non-musical doesn't understand, but yet they enjoy, right? And
Mhm.
so many musicians have gone on what people would say, oh, they're just on a drug frenzy or they're a drug addict and they just get high. But many of them have gone on these trips for higher states of consciousness and have
Mhm.
found some of their best musical uh, coordination between lyrics and notes, meaning music. And when you know the story behind it and then you listen to it, you can actually feel the difference in some of those
Oh yeah.
musicians and so on. But because they've already come in with a different mental capacities than the everyday Joe, they're already in a higher realms of frequency. As musicians and artists, and many right brains are. I am not one of those, but I just know what I appreciate when I see and hear, music or art or whatever. Some things will move you differently because they bring those frequencies back into the this realm,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
So, I mean, that's what was coming up while you were talking, and I was like, yeah, I could see that. And you know, for many people, like even me, the more I'm learning about this, the more I'm actually very interested in it, which is why I was saying, why, what do you have to go through to actually, do it? Well, here in the United States, you really can't, obviously, unless you find a church exempt licensure umbrella to do it. Um, but I know many that have gone out of the country to just literally take a week or two to find themselves, so to speak.
Mhm.
And they're in a rut in their life and they need to change. They need to switch gears and they just can't do it with the everyday tools that are available. They're looking for more, they want more. And so this actually has my interest peaked, and I'm sure it does many of the viewers, which is why we are having these conversations with you.
Yeah, this reminds me, I was traveling back and forth when I was living in the Azores at the time, and I was in Lisbon, and people talk in airports and everything, and I just have to share this story because you can't help it over here. You're not trying to listen, but it's an open conversation because it's right there at the gate. And there was this older couple, and they were talking to this younger gentleman. I'd say he was probably like 30, and he had his long ponytail, cute as a button. And they were like, "Oh, what did where did you go to visit?" And because I was at the Delta Gate, we're all waiting to go back to the States, and this was in Lisbon. And he said, "Oh, I took a lot of time off, and I traveled to 8 countries." And so they're like, "Oh," and he was, where are the countries?" And he names the different countries, they said, "Well, what was the purpose of the trip? To see all these? Was it just the culture?" And he goes, "No," he said, my parents don't understand me because I quit my job." He was a pharmacist, and pharmacist is a six-figure income position. He quits his job. He didn't want to spend. He goes, "I don't want to spend the rest of my life, the next 30 years of my life, putting pills in a bottle. I just don't want to do it." And his parents are like, you left a really good paying job. You went to school. I mean, they have to get a doctorate degree to be, a pharmacist. And he's like, yeah, I don't want to do that anymore. I just don't find meaning in it. And I was thinking to myself, I wonder if he had done a psychotropic plant, one of the master plant teachers, and it totally changes your life. What was important before really isn't that important anymore. And so he was looking to move out of the country and start a new life for himself. And I think he was just trying to find himself, or like reinvent himself. But I think he was really looking for probably something that was revealed to him while he was in sacred ceremony. And he was looking for that particular vibrational frequency that matched a particular country. Like, I'll give you an example. When I went over to Portugal, the first island I went to was Madeira. And when I went there, I was like, it's a beautiful island. But as soon as I got there, I realized, I said, this isn't a vibrational frequency match. And so and so then I ended up going to the Azores, and I knew that was the place I was supposed to write my fourth book. And so it's I think there is something to be said. I think that may have been what he was doing, was trying to find a frequency match of where and we're going to find a lot of people now in the next 3 to 5 years are going to be moving a lot to find something that really fits them. Because I think the old adage of, you go to a job and you spend 30 years of your life at the job that you don't like, but it pays the bills, I think those times are changing. I think people want meaning in their life. I think they want to do something that they are excited to get out of bed in the morning and go to a position that they really enjoy. And I think that's why self-employment is always very popular here in the United States, because you are your own boss and you can make your own way, but also you can create a lot of different things on your own. But I mean, I think that we're just finding that the younger generation, um, the old ways, their parents did it. I think they saw that the parents spent 30 years of their life at a job they didn't like. They're miserable. And so here they are at the end of their life, and they're basically still strapped to a lot of financial burdens, and they basically sold their life away for the sake of just the status quo. And I think a lot of the younger generation doesn't really care about the status quo anymore, and I don't think they really want to be in the status quo box. And I think they're realizing not being in the status quo box actually is a good thing. You're not meant to be in the status quo box. That's why you don't fit in the box. So it's this is really it really helps people when, like you said, when they get to a rut in their life and they want meaning. I really believe people now more than ever want meaning in their life, and I think they want the bigger questions answered. Why did I come to the earth school? What's my purpose work? Am I doing currently my purpose work, or what is it? And if it, and what that is. And I think they want to be able to have an opportunity to go inward, to be able to connect to their higher self, their soul, their spirit guides, their angelic guide, and really find these deeper answers for themselves.
Well, there are many, many people who have gone before us who get into those ruts, and they could call it, turning 40, turning 50, turning 60, whatever it is, and just wanting to drop their entire life and just put it into a trash bag and walk away, right? But people don't do that because they don't see a success rate. There's nothing that counts the success rate of somebody just bagging it and saying, I want to find something else. And do they ever come back successful where they're a mentor for someone else? Because there's no tools out there to guide you. It's just an inner voice going, this isn't for you. But then there's nothing to help you get to the next level of, well, what is there for me? So many people will not take that step because they don't know that possibly plant medicine could be something that could help them. I remember a friend of mine over a decade ago, and she said to me, every single morning at 6 o'clock when the alarm goes off, I sit at the edge of my bed and I say, I have 10 more years till I retire. And she was a very successful engineer. She said, I went to all this schooling and I got this job and I have to do it for the pension and I'm stuck. Right. But every day she got up with dread. And I think she could have, as many could, maybe switch their path, switch their trajectory just a little bit, even if it's they stay in the same line of work, but have a different perspective of it if they're aware that possibly doing a plant medicine sacred ceremony could guide them in a little better way that just brings all of the edges together.
Yeah. And I think also you feel, oh gosh, it's even hard sometimes to put all this into words. What people experience, it makes them, I think, even a better engineer, a better doctor, a
Mhm.
better, whatever they don't necessarily have to switch. I'm not saying they're going to change
Yeah.
their life, but I think that um, I know for a fact that ayahuasca will Mother Ayahuasca does go through your life and she helps you and guides you, that internal guidance system. Because like I said, she bonds with your DNA. She's with you until you take your last breath. You do hear her. She will go through your life. She will say, this person you need to apologize to. This other person has to go. This person can stay. This, and they guide you in this. This isn't going to happen overnight. This is a process, and then you're introduced to certain people, which opens up different opportunities. Your frequency changes because your life has changed, and so it's even if it's, if anything, just for people to have that sense of connectedness, that they have a sense of know thyself as divinity. You know that you are a divine being having a physical experience we call life. And you look at your life completely differently than you did before. Your values are different, and what drives you is different. And so I'm not going to say that everyone makes these major changes, but I know that it definitely helps someone because they feel they know more, they've seen more, they've experienced more, they have a sense more of like a sense of purpose, in the sense of, oh, this is why I came to the earth school. Why here? Why now? Why I was born into this particular family? I'm a part of this soul group. That all, so many questions are asked, answered, and even more that they didn't even ask. And I think they have a better sense of calmness in their life because they have experienced maybe talking with people on the other side of the veil that really did give them amazing, guidance and conversations. Some people will have these right out of the gate. Some people, they have to cultivate and get their frequency up to a higher level that they can get into these upper dimensions. We talked about this in a prior episode. There are certain gatekeepers. You don't go barging into these higher dimensions without clearance. It's a frequency match. If you're at a high enough frequency, you'll get automatically entered. And that's why they always say, raise your frequency, expand your consciousness. And we're like, why? Why is because that allows you entrance into these higher dimensions where you have access to these arcane mysteries. And so it's yeah, it's a unique experience for each person because each soul is different. What you need to hear, or I need to hear, or the neighbor needs to hear, or is it's so amazing because the journey is unique as each soul.
Hmm. Well, you know what? I think that's a lot for our listeners to take in today. And I
Yeah.
think it's a perfect time to just allow everyone to kind of digest that. As far as I'm concerned, you are my expertise, right? And you're bringing us your expertise-ness, which we appreciate. And so let's do this again. Let's talk more about this. I really just think it's a topic that I think is going to start piquing people's interest, especially as these newer energies are hitting the planet and there's a lot more chaos coming. And meaning like just a lot of hecticness at this time of year and just a lot of people just getting disgruntled with their lives and just feeling like they've been chasing their tail. And the old programming is dying out and no one's quite sure how to step into a new program. And I think understanding the avenues and just understanding plant medicine better just throws different options and things out there for people to learn, just to learn. It may not be for you. We're not saying that. It's just
Right.
something to learn, something to be open to. It's new information for a lot of people because there's been a lot of misinformation and control that's been placed out there ahead of us. So we're here to kind of set the record straight and start opening people's minds to other possibilities of how to change your world, change your mind, change your life into a path that you authentically are here to live and step out of what's been pre-programmed, and you've been kind of locked in that hamster wheel. So, all right, Nancy, is there anything else you want to say before we sign off and get ready to go for another roll?
Yes. Well, I wanted to let people know this Master Plan Teacher's book, it is my dissertation for my PhD in mystical research. This book is heavily researched. And so there's a lot of information in this book, and we won't be able to cover all of it in these podcasts. But if they get the book, then they'll have access to all the information in it. So yeah, I did want to let people know this isn't a book. It took me over a year to write this book. This isn't a book I cooked up over, over a weekend. So yeah, but
Yeah, and a lot of people are running around with no nonsense books like the Harlequin romance and the greatest latest murder thriller, who done it. Put all that crap down and just maybe go into some things that are a little more educational and factual,
Mhm.
not so much creative for distractions, so to
Mhm.
speak. All right, everybody, please remember to join us by like, subscribe, share here at Keep It Spiritually Simple. We do our best to, bring shows to you that, let people be themselves and to express information in a raw, more authentic, truthful way. And in their words, nothing is rehearsed here. So much love to all the listeners. Thank you for your support. And Miss Nancy, Dr. Nancy, we'll see you on the next video. Bye.
Bye.